Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've got another Play and Explain episode for you coming away. A few tables, three tables of 1K and one table of 2K up and running. This isn't actually a live session. I recorded this a few days ago, but the sound didn't work, so I'm going to talk over the top of the action, I suppose. And we'll see how that works. Um, in the bottom left, looks like we're against a recreational player. I think we were deciding whether the hand was good enough to check call off versus the jam here. We thought that he was fairly wide, fairly loose, so the a7 would be worth a call. And then here, likewise with the jacks, I think we played ISO an ISO preflop and then face a donk on the 6-4 deuce, and decide to raise. Queen 8 off, opening that one up. Yeah, I think the a7 suited is close. I mean, it's just going to be based on how wide and aggressive the villain is. Like, they're going to have a bunch of 10x here, or just some random merges as well. And it just depends like how often they lose their mind with random trash. Obviously we lose this time here, and it's clearly going to be a fold against some people and a call against others. Like, it's yeah, very much have to make that decision based on who you think you're up against there. I mean, there is something to be said given like I think it was a 2x pot shove. Like maybe, I mean, there are going to be plenty of recreationals who just lose their mind at that sort of stack depth and stack off way too loose. So, I think it's a close decision. Three betting the jacks and three betting the king queen off seems standard. But yeah, let me know how you think of this format, given that it's not live, and so I can sort of, it's kind of cool for me to sort of look back and see if I would have done anything different now relative to what I did live. I think we just had a brief, I think I paused the video briefly, so a bit of a skip in the hands, but not too much has changed in terms of time. Um, yeah, see if you like this compared to the live version. Hopefully, I mean, I played this hands only a couple of days ago, so I should be able to provide any of the sort of reads that I was thinking through. Should be able to still provide those. But otherwise, first of January for me as I'm speaking now. So hopefully you'll had a good New Year's and good luck at the on the tables for the year ahead. Just a bit of folding at the moment. But yeah, I think I'm definitely looking to put out some more content this year, and so you'll also see some um, study material coming out in terms of looking at some interesting spots in GTO Wizard is definitely what I'm looking at. There's some um, spots in the game tree that I'm not too familiar with that I'm looking to brush up on, and so yeah, we'll put some content out in that direction as well. Um, the 5-10 off bottom left, when we face the limp, like depending on the villain there, we can ISO that if they're just going to have a really high limp fold frequency. Um, if they are quite stationy and are just going to limp call a lot, then obviously, ISOing with such a trash hand doesn't make a heap of sense, and we should probably just check. And we donked flop, which I think is fine, and then I think a lot of recreationals are going to flat the flop c bets like super wide, and so then the second barrel is going to be quite effective, which is what I've gone for there. Um, we also know that I think then once he calls the turn, like if he calls the turn, he's generally got a pair, and I expect the triple barrel fold frequency to be quite low. So definitely just like a plan to double barrel and give up river there. Queen 9 on the 9-5-3. I think big bets and checks are probably the strategy to play here. We can deviate if we have a reason for that, given we're against a recreational. But yeah, playing big bets and checks makes sense to me. We check this time and we see an ace on the turn. This hand makes some sense to double check. There's going to be some ace high in the big blind's range. I think we can also bet small and get value out of, all of villains 3x, 5x, 9x, which, from a recreational, I don't expect them to fold any of those. Also, now, spade draws, flush draws. Sorry, yeah, spade and club draws. Faced a really big raise here, which is a little bit suspicious to me, to be honest. I think I end up folding here, but yeah, quite suspicious of that sizing. I've missed action on the bottom left as to exactly how this ran out. It might have been c-bet flop and then check check turn. Now facing river bet. I think we just fold bottom left. And then top right, facing a small continue. I think raise and call are both on the table. Given that the sizing's slightly bigger, I can get behind call slightly more. If we just face like 1/3, I prefer raising like really high frequency. Yeah, I think the 4/7 in the bottom left should probably just be a fold. We do find it. We find the call with the queen 10, double paired board. And then we face the snap check. Like it's gonna be hard to make money out of this player here. Like after they snap check turn, I don't expect them to reopen on river. I think we do just need to do the betting ourselves. Um, that would be my view. So I think it's a mistake to check here. Hoping for him to reopen on river because I just don't think villains are going to reopen on river here as a bluff. So here we want to just like try and get two streets out of like pocket sevens or pocket eights or something. And then after he hit me with the emoji, I remember this. I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can just like, generally people who are emojiing are like recreational, subject to a bit of tilt. So then I full time bank tank down and go for the bigger bet. Um, just trying to induce something out of him. If he's got some ace highs that are just like not planning on folding. I thought there was like slightly higher frequency, at least slightly higher probability that he would call larger bets after he'd hit me with the emoji. As I said, I think it's a spot where I think it's kind of hard to get much more value there after we face the snap check. But yeah, just a little tell on the emojis that I went with. Yeah, clearly we got the fold. ISOing the king nine off against a very loose recreational by the looks of it. Again, making these judgments off tiny sample sizes, but it's when they're limping and they're limping every hand and they snap call the ISO. You're going to assume a very wide range. So king nine is miles ahead. And so we go for a big bet, which I think makes sense. Like we have a massive value hand against a really wide recreational, and it's kind of hard to miss the board. And so we're expecting a lot of continues with some like marginal pair plus draw hands, even against that sizing. Top right, we ISO'd the king 10, and we get a flop of king 7/7. Generally just small betting, but if we're against a recreational who's going to be really stab happy, we can check as well. Because I guess the challenge is like villain's got a lot of air here, which they've got a lot of Jack 8 offsuit, which it's kind of hard for them to continue with. Yeah, again on the turn here, I think it's going to be villain dependent on how like are they going to call us with ace high twice? It's kind of ambitious to be hoping for that. I don't mind a check on top right to then just like get them to spew off with too much random air that they floated on flop. We do go for the check. I think I prefer check because our hand is also not super strong that we want to go bet jam. And this way now we get the random airball bluffs that have come through, right? Like so we're just clearly I think very happy with our king 10 here would be my assumption. Looking at us tanking down with the queen 10 in the bottom left as well. Seems close after did we check back flop or do we face donk? I guess we just fold. I don't think I was paying particular attention live or now thinking about the king 10 hand. Okay, so he does just like snap check back. I think the I prefer the way the hand was played rather than going for the double barrel on the turn. I think we just get the airball bluffs coming out. We flop two pair in the bottom left. We can certainly consider going for donk here. And I would base that on whether or not villains are aggressive. Um, looks like player five, this is the bottom right table, looks like player five, the whale isn't particularly aggressive. So, yeah, hence why I've gone for a donk. I just don't expect it to get c-bet at a high enough frequency. If we get a really quick snap call, I think we just go bet, bet, bet here with the 2-3. That would be my assumption. I don't think, again, I don't think it's going to be bluffed at a high enough frequency that we want to start incorporating checks. I mean, the hand by river is going to be reasonably marginal to go for three straights. Like this, it's kind of hard to have a nice run out. So you could argue for some checks on turn, just saying like let's wait and see for a clean river and then go for our big straight of value. And then it becomes obviously a really nice bluff catcher. But I think I do prefer just like trying to eke out three straights. ISOing the Jack 9 makes sense. We've had some like pretty big recreationals on the tables in this session, which I think we're going to see pretty shortly. Flop top pair on the 9-8-6. I think this was, and we flopped the nuts with the Jack 9, which is pretty nice. I think bottom right just clearly going for value. Somewhere between B50, B75 makes sense to me. I don't want to go third pot. A recreational here is just going to stack off way too wide, and so let's just like build the pot now. Top left was interesting in that we faced a raise from, is it the big blinds? And it's like really dicey because we faced the donk from the small blind and we're way ahead of his range. So we're playing way ahead of his range, but then it's unclear how wide the big blind's raising because obviously like he can raise way thinner for value given that there's like such a big recreational in the pool. So it's unclear exactly how strong the raise is, right? Like if he's got queen nine, I imagine he can raise, which means we are actually value beating still with ace nine. Whereas if we were sort of playing against regs, we'd be much more clearly already in the region of bluff catching. And then when he checks, I think there's value to be had with the ace nine. I think we should be putting out a small bet. I think when player three has his like super value, if he has like pocket sixes, I don't see him ever checking turn here. So I think we kind of have a green light that we've got the best hand here. Aside from like sometimes player three having 8-6 or 8-9 or something. And then bottom right, we just go for the jam. I mean, not the best run out, but I think we just have to jam. Yeah, and then top left, it was a really interesting decision here. We've got like pot behind a bit less, and we're in a spot where we can probably still get value out of the recreational player, but there's a fair bit that we lose to. And it's like, how often are we getting trapped by player three? I think this is a really close decision. And I guess the challenge is that the recreational does also just have some hands that beat us as well, right? Like they do just have 10-7, 9-8, 9-6, those like type of hands at a decent clip as well. So is it too greedy to go for another straight? I kind of deemed that it was live. Like I think it is quite greedy to go for another straight and feels very thin. But if we're against like a really special recreational, which we are against player one, then sometimes you have to be really greedy. It's just like I think if player three is out of this pot, I'm going for stacks here. But with player three still behind, I just can't quite do it. Was my judgment, and it's unfortunate because we see king nine, and I think that's a hand that probably stacks off against us. But can we actually go for it? I don't know. Seems very thin. I think we ISO'd the queen jack and then get re-raised, and this is very close. I think it should probably be a fold. Um, and just assume that players aren't doing this wide enough. We go for the call, which yeah, I think it's very marginal. And we get a flop that clearly we're not doing any folding against. So yeah, I think we turn the nuts and go for a small bet and just get a fold. So not actually much happens. Not much happens top right. Bit of a shame, but anyway. Kind of interesting that he's just got a limp raise hand that's then just gone for a check fold versus the small bet on the turn here. Like, has he just played ace king and just doesn't want to deal one straight? I mean, that's kind of the natural inclination. And then I guess it's whether he has any like more obscure hands in this like limp raising range, which yeah, we don't have much visibility over. Queen's here, looking to ISO raise. Yeah, 12 is fine. We're expecting pretty little fold equity from player 5, like expecting them to come along like pretty much all the time. Get a nice flop. Um, yeah, I mean, I've sized up to half pot here. I think we can also just go third. There's not much money behind. Yeah, okay. I prefer third pot. Okay, we've gone something slightly custom. Seems in the realm of being fine. ISOing on bottom left. You can see like using massive ISO sizes, like that's just the way to punish recreationals when they're, limp calling super wide. And also ace 10 is a pretty garbage hand. Like we're pretty happy to just take this down pre. Um with the queens, I think we should probably just jam and get the money in. Um and that way we also are just going to get paid off by like spades and some like more obscure, like 7-6 is always going to call from a recreational here when it's also got some extra equity. So I think we make more by jamming here rather than checking and getting extra bluffs on the river from villain. And he just calls us with the 2 overs and a gut shot, so um that's pretty nice. I guess like that hand is probably an example of why I prefer jam on the turn, because if Queen Jack then bricks the river, like yes, he can choose to bluff the river, but he's shown that he's fairly passive, so he probably doesn't just donk jam the river with Queen High, and then of course he never calls off with Queen High on the river. So I think we, whilst his hand is still, quote unquote live, has a gut shot draw, we just like want to entice him to put in as much money as possible. Don't know why we're tanking with the king queen. Like let's just. Oh, that's right. There's the under the gun, the low jack limper off a 25 V pip. Like looks like a reg and then is limping under the gun. I'm pretty suspicious of that. That's a pretty strong hand. So actually I was discussing, I think player 6 just has a very strong hand here, which then when he bets half pot here into 4 players, like is just he's got an overpair all day in my book. Was sort of my analysis there. So hence why we played the king queen like passively. Like I think it's still better to limp than to just fold it pre, even if we think he's got a strong hand. Um, but yeah, that was the read, and then just getting out of there on the flop, um, given that we're expecting to be crushed a decent amount. That is like one thing to be careful of is the regs who then all of a sudden are limping like on the low jack. Like I just don't expect them to have a balanced limping range. It's just going to be way too strong. So yeah, we do see the jacks and sort of have that read validated. Open up the king jack and gonna open up the ace queen. Standard stuff. Not sure why we're tanking on the ace queen. Maybe we were considering whether we use bigger sizings. Like I would consider using bigger sizings when like player 1 is in the big blind, just because they're going to call way too wide. But yeah, not too much reason to change the sizing there in this spot, given that player 1's already folded. Flat twos on the button, which is fine, particularly in this rake structure. Like it's probably pretty marginal, but I think it's fine. And face check, which, yep, we would expect to see sort of checks here at a reasonable frequency, and then I think we can have small bets and checks here with pocket twos. Like I think both are going to be fine. 8-7 top left. I think we should just call. I think I was clearly considering ISO raising, but this hand kind of just wants to go multi-way and make a big hand. We're not going to get much fold equity against the recreational, so we're kind of just like bloating the pot out of position with 8 high, which doesn't make a heap of sense. So we do go for the small bets with pocket twos bottom right, which I think is fine. So we see a jam top left. That's clearly showing the volatility. I imagine this is just always like king queen, but it's interesting if it was ever like ace jack or pocket jacks or something. But yeah, just obviously a clear fold. Pocket twos bottom right. I think we have enough showdown. Like we don't need to be turning this into a bluff. I just imagine we check. We beat some ace highs. And we have some like bailout equity to a spade sometimes as well, which I think we want to realize. Folding the 6-10. Definitely going to look to ISO the ace-7 if we get the chance against the super loose recreational. Yeah, and I think bottom right should just be a check. I don't really see. I mean, you can bet small and sometimes get, now ace king with a single spade. Like, yeah, you can get another street out of value there, but I think it makes more sense to check. Yeah, I want to see an ISO with the ace-7. Seems good. Don't flop much. Um, yeah, and like the King Jack 8 boards, I think I just prefer, I think we just go for third and just say that his range is super wide. He's going to have so much air that's going to have to fold. But then, you are going to face this a bunch, and like, I don't think there's much point in continuing. Bottom right, we have a bluff catcher. It's close. We're getting a good price. There are some, ace king, ace jack with a single spade, like those type of hands. There's plenty of those. I think it's very close. Yeah, I think it's very close. Like the price is really good. We don't need to win there very often. Um, don't need to win there very often. Yeah, I think we just have to fold the ace-7, right? Like the problem is that even when villain is doing this with like 8-9 off or something, if we do anything stupid, right, they probably just stack off with 8-9 off. So like, yes, we can rebluff them if they've got pure air, but I think more often than not they have some sort of holding, and even if that's super merged, there's not much that we can do about that. Kind of a case of like, let's just make a better hand against him and then go from there. No luck with the aces. Definitely want to ISO the jack-7 suited. Yeah, I think it's a value raise against a fish that's limping from the small blind. And we get to play an inflated pot in position against a recreational. Like it's kind of the best of both worlds. Obviously when they fold as well, we're pretty happy. We face a donk for half pot, which it's gonna be some ace X and then just like a bunch of random stuff as well. I think play call, never gonna be doing anything else. I don't think there's much point in raising. The 8 of hearts, which it's gonna sometimes they'll be donking their flush draws here, so definitely less comfortable with the spot. But facing half pot again, I mean we just are looking at the player type here, and he's super loose, super loose. And this is just going to be some random mergers in here, which sucks in that he can also still be betting ace high for 2 streets. But I think with a jack with some redraw, and that's just redraw to 2 pair, we should continue calling. Going to be opening up the ace queen, obviously, and then river decision. I mean, we get bailed out and that we face check. It was definitely going to be close as to whether we call. I think if we face half pot again, I think the plan was to call. If we face anything bigger, plan was probably to fold. And yeah, I don't see this. This is just a clear check. More just like talking about whether we win or lose the hand, not really considering betting here when I'm like tanking here. But yeah, it's just a very clear check. And we beat the merge from the jack three of clubs, which is yeah, quite humorous. We face the min three bets again. Like I don't think this is super strong from a recreational player here. Um, like yeah, they're just given that like sometimes this will be super strong um from a recreational who's like not three bet at all. But given that we've already seen three bets, he's playing 86% VPIP. Um, like I think it's a very weak three betting range. And then when we face like the snap five bets, I'm not sure what we're looking at the replay here, whether we're looking at previous hands from him. The snap five bet, yeah, it's just a question of whether we think ace queen is still ahead of his range, and given that he's super wide, it's much closer. Like clearly, this is a snap fold versus most people. We've made the read that we think he's quite wide, and we get rewarded by seeing the jack six suited and actually hold, which is nice. Yeah, so just absolutely goes nuts. So um, yeah, not much more to say. That's clearly just a spot where again a lot of people are going to make the mistake by folding if they're not paying attention to who they're playing against, right? It's very easy if you're just like on autopilot to see that you've gotten snap five bet and just like go of ace queen off because in all the charts ace queen off's going to be a clear fold there. Um, yeah, just knowing your opponent who you're up against. Like the a7 suited seems fine. And the ace-5 suited, I mean, we can flat, but I'll typically be just coming in for a 3-bet on the button there. We go for the 3-bets. And then 5-2-2-3, top left. I mean, there's like non-zero merit for going for like one big blind. There are a bunch of just random overcards that, can either float the one big blind or will fold and we pick up some useful fold equity. Clearly never folding versus the small bets with a gut shot and also just plenty of showdown value. I mean, we've got much less showdown value given that it's an under the gun raiser. And the challenge is that they will be just betting some better ace highs here, um, which does make this worse, but like, I think it's still very clearly profitable on the turn. And then river is quite close if we face a bet, but he does just check back the ace king, which is whatever, and we lose that one to a better ace high, which yeah is going to happen a decent clip of the time, and particularly when you're facing an under the gun range. The 9-3 suited again is another spot where I am pure ISOing this against a limper if I think we've got good fold equity, and I'm not going to take the spot if we have sort of if I don't perceive we have much fold equity. So yeah, just making a judgment call based on the type of fish there. Like I don't think there's much point in ISO raising it if we're just like always raising the 5 big blinds and always getting called. But if we're getting folds 90% of the time, which is from some recreationals, then should definitely go for the ISO, just like pretty much whole of range. Yeah, I think double barreling again for the same reason, just like there's going to be plenty of floats on the flop that we can then fold out on the turn. And then on the river, I imagine we just give up. I think we give up and then, yeah, I remember this now. We give up and we see like Jack 6 or King 6 or something that we lose to. And so if they're just, I mean, if they're just super wide with their floats, then like, yeah, maybe we should just be triple barreling this. The challenge is that there's like a lot of pairs on board, and I don't expect any pair to fold. Um, so it's yeah, it's kind of hard for them not to have a pair. So I think the give up is okay. Yeah, the Jack 5. Yeah, it's close. Close. I'm not sure how I feel about that one. I think definitely yeah, betting flop, betting turn is good, and then yeah, it's just like because I think we harness a lot of the fold equity. You know, when the Jack 5 doesn't turn a gut shot, which I think he did, right? Like then he just folds. And so that's the power of the double barrel there. I guess you could say if we choose to triple barrel on a bunch of boards where there were plenty of draws that villain can have that's still bricked that are still better than us. So if there's like multiple flush draws available and we have a hand that loses to a lot of those flush draws, like to an ace high or a king high flush draw, then maybe that's when we choose to triple barrel. Basically, when there's clear draws that villain will have that have missed that are going to fold to our bet. Um, I missed action whether we is this small blind big blind top left. I missed the action. So I won't comment. I won't comment on this one. Clearly didn't miss the action when I was live playing it, but and then king jack bottom left. I think we'll go for a three bet. And against this sizing with jack 10, like regardless of the action, we don't need to be right very often. So I think we should just flick it in. Paying attention to pot odds is important. Like, yep, losing to an ace there makes a lot of sense, but when you're getting such a good price, like, doesn't really matter. You can be losing that spot, most of the time and still be profiting by calling there. ISOing the ace 8 makes sense. Just again against a super placid recreational, and yeah, we know he defends like really wide, which I'm just typing in there. So like we know the ace 8 is just like a very strong hand against this, limp call range. And we see 10-4-5. This is like, one of the interesting hands in that when we bet here, we're probably still value betting, although it's quite merged, right? We're just like banking on him defending enough, king high, queen high, jack highs, 6-7, 7-8, maybe 9-8, kind of comes in there, those type of hands, ace 3, ace 2. But when we bet here, we're definitely value betting. The alternative is here, we can also check and just like look to hero down. And we also need to remember that he donks quite merged with his like pairs from when we saw him with the jack 3 suited here. So when we face check, he's much more weighted towards a non-showdown value hand. And that means that we can either check here and then like bluff catch really happily, or we can just put in some small value bets and we just like know that we're doing even better by betting here. In that his core region is going to consist of a bunch of just like random cards and way less pairs. So yeah, I think small bet and check are both okay, and then it's just like important to recognize that we expect his range to be just like very weak in general. Obviously, we're happy to get a fold in that we're denying plenty of equity there. Happy with any result. We check back bottom pair. I think we can also choose to bet small top left as well. Both strategies are going to be fine. Going to turn the world. Turn the world and face overbet, which yeah means that our hand is immediately just a bluff catcher. It's obviously a very strong bluff catcher, right? Like because we have infinite redraw. So yeah, clearly never folding. I don't think there's much merit in raising. Um, the challenge is being 200 big blinds deep as well. Even when we hit our flush, assuming we don't hit the 7 of or the 2 of hearts, we um, then there's going to be significant reverse implied odds because when we're playing a big pot 200 big blinds deep and we only have a 5 high flush, we're like often going to be losing to a better flush. And then, yeah, when we face two-thirds pots, the decision is, you know, somewhat close. We have a bluff catcher. He was repping a strong hand on the turn. I think when they size down from the overbet on the turn to now, B75 on the river, I think it's generally more weighted towards value, so I'm less inclined to bluff catch. Would be my um would be my inclination. I think actually here I was talking if we're 100 big blinds deep, I don't mind the idea of raising here. Like I think it's a pretty good raise candidate. It's blocking 5-7, blocking pocket threes. And ultimately I just decided not to go for it based on the stack depth. Um, yeah, I think 100 big blinds deep. Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe we should go for it in theory anyway. I think it's certainly close. I think call is probably the worst option. Um, and then raise could well be more profitable. Because I guess what we're saying is when we think when they've gone from overbet to sizing down to B75, we think that they are more weighted towards, good value, but not super nutted value. And, good value we can place a lot of pressure on when we, apply a big raise. Because obviously it's not, we're not expecting him to put enough of his nutted hands in that line. Like I think his nutted hands are just going to go overbet, overbet. So King 10-7, three clubs, flop middle sets. I think we can both bet, quite small and check. Like 25% pot is sort of the sizing that I'm going for here. I think given that we know that he just like took a fairly aggressive line against us, like, waiting towards checking and just like stationing him, might get a little bit better. We're also 200 big blinds deep, so I imagine in theory we're going to be doing a lot more checking. I'm not particularly well studied. Well, I'm not studied at all at 200 big blinds on a monotone board in a 3-bet pot, but I would think that our check frequency just goes up significantly. So maybe it's just right to be always checking pocket tens. I think when we're 100 big blinds deep, we can small bet as well. We face the third pot, just clear call. I don't think there's any merit in raising. Top right, I've missed the action, but we're against a recreational and we have two pairs, so I imagine we should just be going for value. And the ace-9-4 with the queen deuce, pretty hopeless hands, and shouldn't be c-betting this at full frequency, but just making the assumption that we're not going to get raised enough. And so we're just going to put some of our trash hands into this B33 sizing. Basically just saying people still aren't defending appropriately against this. We do go for, I think it was the Nova bet. I missed the exact sizing, but yeah, makes sense. Top right. Pocket Queens, bottom right. Definitely going to go for a 3-bet. Fold the 5-8. And then, yeah, pocket tens. Like, yeah, after we just saw the aggressive action from him previously, that's just naturally going to weight him to being, a more aggressive player. Yeah, just going to go for a clear call. We also have redraw to pretty nutted hands when villain does have a flush here. I'm not sure what the bottom of his value range is here. Like, I guess he's probably taking this line this way with pocket sevens as well, so we do still have a value beta. And maybe like King 10, King 9, maybe. That being said, no merit in raising. Yeah, just clearly check, and then I think plan was to call any sizing, and except for jam, like jam we are very uncomfortable against. Because essentially when he jams, he's basically saying I have the ace high flush or a very strong flush or nothing. And like he does have candidates like ace queen, ace jack off with the ace of clubs to take as the bluffing line. Um, so we're then just like caught with a set which doesn't block any value, which is then very marginal. So yeah, not sure what I would have done against jam, but we get bailed out by just facing check. Although yeah, we would have been planning to call any sort of reasonable sizing. ISO, we'll 3-bet the queen jack suited, seems fine, and opening up the king 8 off. Fold 6-9, fold 6-5. Okay, so we see king 6-5 bottom right. I think just go for third pot. Pretty much with range is probably fine. Um, that would be my default strategy, and yeah, Queen Jack of Hearts is definitely fine to do that with. We can turn some nice things, hopefully. We'll just get a fold now. So when we see the 5 of clubs, I imagine we want to be doing a decent amount of check. On the 5 of clubs. Firstly, like we were range betting, right? So we bet, sevens through queens on the flop, which are now all like, reasonable checks. And we have a bunch of, ace queen, ace jack, ace 10 type hands, which are all, you um, basically, if we keep betting here at a pure frequency, we're just going to be overdoing it. And I don't perceive this turn to be one that where we garner a huge amount of fold equity from his like underpairs, from his like pocket nines, pocket eights. So I think check makes sense. The other thing that's going against this queen jack is that we don't block king queen or king jack suited. So, if we have queen jack of clubs here, then yep, we can make a much stronger argument for continuing to bet. Whereas I think Queen Jack of Hearts is, yeah, it's much less clear that we should be continuing that hand. I'm not sure whether it should be, like, I feel like check is certainly fine. Like, it's not going to be a pure bet. And then it's just whether it's a mistake to bet or not, I'm not sure. And then on this run out, it's like, I just don't perceive our fold equity to be very high here. Um, the ace-6 suited, I think this is button versus big blind facing a big sizing, so we're already like being pushed towards indifference. We're still still clearly calling, but like it's already a little bit dicey when we're facing the big sizing. I think it's just the important thing to be aware of. Yeah, and the queen jack, I'm just like, I think we just check. Clearly I'm tanking right down. I think we are just not in a node here where we garner much fold equity. That's my assumption. Yeah, and then just going to be a clear fold with the queen jack. And then I think top left went check check on the turn. I think small bet and check are both fine on the river top left. Probably prefer small bet. I think it's very close. So it's again a function of how often is he reopening as a bluff, which I don't perceive is going to be very high. So, but then when he bets so big on the flop, it's kind of hard. Like he shouldn't really have pocket kings that's then going to call us, right? So yeah, maybe we should just be checking and trying to get the air region of his range to reopen. If he'd gone smaller on the flop, then I think it's a much clearer bet on the river because there are just going to be some more merged under pairs that makes sense for him to have. Imagine we're just folding the pocket sixes. Yeah, so maybe I prefer check on the ace-6 of diamonds hand. It probably makes sense. Again, I don't think the reopen frequency is super high, but that may still just be better than the alternative of betting small and just like always getting folds. Let's see how long's left. Yeah, okay. A minute left on the recording. So I think yeah, let me know what you think about this recording format, not doing it live, but still giving you my sort of conscious stream of thought, when it was still relatively fresh. Can also look at doing some of these hands, like when I get an interesting spot, bringing up GTO Wizard and taking a look at, whether my line was a deviation or whether it was correct play. Doing some of that as well in the future could also be an option. So let me know if you'd like to see that. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you've had a great start to the new year, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Alrighty, cheers.